Okay, so what we need you to do today is, you're watching these notes to finish up your notes. If you're in third block, you've seen this part already, but you can always go back and look at it again. And then we'll talk about how do we write it from real world data. All right, so step one, if you're going to be writing the equation, you need to find your window. That means going from minimum to minimum, maximum to maximum. Well, this guy goes from minimum to minimum, here to here. Midline needs to be identified. Midline is, looks like right here, right? Because going from -1 to 3, this is 4 units, which means the amplitude would be from here to the midline, which would be 2 units. Now we're going to draw in our window. I'm going to draw in a window. It starts here, goes from here to another minimum, and from here to there. Okay? So this, guys, is my window. So now I can find everything I need from there. Again, I have my amplitude is 2. So there's my amplitude. I need to know what my period is. Period is going to be from here to here. From 0 to 180 would be pi over 2. Normally this thing starts where? Normally it's low, so it starts low. So that tells me since it starts low or high, it's going to be cosine. As a matter of fact, it's flipped over, so it's going to be low and flipped, right? So it's going to be negative cosine. So I know this is a negative cosine graph. We could do it that way. If you wanted to, you could have it, normally it starts at high. You could actually have this thing go from high to high and have it phase shifted instead. So it doesn't matter either way. But we're going to do this one as negative cosine. So we have our amplitude. So we know A is equal to 2. B, we know the period. So for B, we're going to say, okay, the period is, that's T, is 2 pi over B. So we know the period is pi over 2. That's equal to 2 pi over B. Pi goes away. So we get B is equal to, B over 2 is equal to 2. So B is 4. So B is 4. Midline, let's say we know what this point is right here, right? This point is the point 0, 1. So this tells me my phase shift. And this tells me my vertical shift, doesn't it? Okay, so my phase shift is equal to 0, and that is equal to C over B. So 0 is equal to C over 4, which means that C is 0. And then my vertical shift, which is in this case 1, is equal to D. So now I have D, I have B, I have C, I have A, and I know it's flipped, so it's negative cosine. So now I'm going to fill this in. Y equals A cosine, in this case negative A cosine bx minus C plus D. So this is going to be negative 2 cosine. B is 4, so this is 4x minus 0, so it's just 4x plus 1. So there's my graph. There's my equation from my graph. Because your teacher is, it's a Monday and your teacher's not on the ball. So this is also pi, which means that B is also two. Which means this is also 2. Okay? So negative 2 cosine 2x plus 1. And let's look at another one. Here we go. Again, we're going to go from either midline to midline or max to max or min to min. Well, this starts right here at what looks like a midline. So we're going to go ahead and figure out what our window is. So from midline all the way again to, because you always know midline twice, and there's the center. So there we go. Here's our window. Since it starts at the midline, we know this is the point what? 0, negative 5. We know it starts at the midline. So it must be a sine graph. Okay. We're going to look at the amplitude. Well, the amplitude from here to here, from -5 to -3 is 2. This is, again, the period is from 0 to 180, which is pi over 2. So my period is pi over 2. So we know that A is the amplitude, which is 2. B, to get B, we're going to set our pi over 2 equal to 2 pi over B. So we know B is, again, 4. C is we get from our phase shift. So we know our phase shift, which is 0, is equal to C over B. So C is, again, 0, right? And then D is our vertical shift, and our vertical shift this time is, normally starts at 0 and it's at negative side, so our vertical shift is -5, so D is -5. So we're going to write this. Y equals A, which is 2, sine B x plus C, which is 0, plus D. There's my guy for this one, okay? Oh, wait a minute. I just made a big mistake on both of these. 180 is not pi over 2. 180 is pi. Guys, I'm so sorry. The period is pi. So that makes this just pi, which makes this 2. I'll go back and fix the other one here. So this is over 2. Doesn't change that. So this is 2x minus 5. All right, let's go back and change. It is 2 sine 2x minus 5. All right, so now, goodness gracious. All right, so now how do we take this from real world data? I'll be more careful here. There's a couple formulas you need to know. The formula for amplitude. So amplitude is equal to 1/2 max minus min. All right, period is going to be equal to max 1 minus max 2. All right. Midline is equal to 1/2 max plus min. And the vertical shift is going to be equal to the midline y value minus, oh, it's just really the midline y value. What am I thinking? All right, so if we could find the midline y value. All right, so now we could graph this if we wanted to, but basically what we're going to do is we're going to go through here and we're going to figure out where my minimum is and my maximum is. This looks like a minimum, the absolute minimum. And then as we go again, we get to another minimum here, don't we? Max is going to be, what, 84? So here's my max. Okay? So min to max. All right, from min to min, that gives me my period. From min to min again, so this is the period. Or max to max, but we've got min to min. So if we're looking at this in terms of months, let's do this. Let's do amplitude. So our amplitude is 1/2. Max is 84 minus the min, which is 30. So we're talking about half of 54, which is 27 degrees. So the amplitude is 27 degrees, or 27. Period. That would be from January, if January is 1, so that would be 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. So the period is 12 months. Okay? To find B, we can set 12 equal to what? 2 pi over B. Now, why do we know that? Because we know this is going to go up and back down again. We're going to decide whether we want to write this as a sine or a cosine. Well, since it starts at a minimum, so it starts minimum, so we're going to call this cosine. Okay? As a matter of fact, it's really kind of negative cosine, isn't it? If it starts at a minimum. Call it negative cosine. So now we're going to do 12 equals 2 pi over b, so 12b equals 12b equals 2 pi, divide both sides by 12, and we get b is pi over 6. So now we have b is pi over 6. So now, midline, we're going to do 1/2 the max, which is 84, plus the min, which is 30. 1/2 of, that equals 1/2 of 114, which is 57 degrees. So the midline is 57 degrees. Now what does that tell me? What that normally tells me is that I have a midline y value. This would be my vertical shift. All right, so that's our vertical shift. Now what we need to figure out is how far did it move until it's at its max. If we consider this a negative cosine, then we don't have to. Then it normally starts at the first place, doesn't it? Yeah, it does. It normally starts at the first place, which means it starts at a minimum. Now, if we want to call this positive cosine, let's do this as positive cosine. Then it normally starts at a max, doesn't it? Well, where is it a max? It's here during month 7. So for our phase shift, max is normally at max is normally at 0, but here it's at 7. Okay, so we are shifted over 7, aren't we? But so we know our phase shift is 7. So we know our phase shift is equal to C over B. So 7 is equal to C over B, which is pi over 6. So if we cross multiply here, we get C is 7 pi over 6. So now we've got C, we've got our vertical shift, which is D, we've got our B right here, which is pi over 6, and we've got our amplitude, which is A right here. So we've got A, B, C, and D. So now all we have to do is write this out as a cosine function. So this is going to be A cosine bx minus C plus D. We can just plug in. A we said was 27. Cosine B is pi over 6 minus C, which was 7 pi over 6, plus D, which is plus 57. And that would be how we do that with real data. Okay, so the things you need to remember here: amplitude formula, period formula, midline. How do we get the vertical shift? Again, you're using the same formulas. How do we get phase shift? What do we look at for phase shift right there? How do we decide if it's sine or cosine? Does it start at the midline, or does it start at a max or min? If it starts at a max or min, make it a cosine and phase shift it to where you're at your max. Okay? Now, what if we had decided to leave it at a min right here? We could have left it a min here. Then it would have changed this. We would have had negative cosine, and we would have only had a shift of 1, phase shift 1 over, okay? And that would have changed. The only thing that would have changed anywhere is it would have changed this right here. Okay? All right.